Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into the incredibly haunting but honestly beautiful world of Crestfall Close. On the surface, it looks like your completely standard English suburban neighborhood, right? You've got the beige houses, those super strict rules about hedge heights, neighbors dropping off homemade jam, the whole shebang. But beneath that perfectly manicured, quiet surface is a mystery that literally spans 3,000 years. We're talking about a story that blends architecture, deep metaphysics, and the absolute power of simply paying attention. Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this. You just bought a standard three-bedroom house. You've read the surveyor's report, you've walked through every single inch of the place, but then, one day, you're walking down your upstairs hallway, right past the airing cupboard where the house is supposed to just end, and you realize, wait, it doesn't end. There's an extra 8 feet of corridor, and at the very end of it is a door. A completely impossible fourth room that totally defies the physical dimensions of the house. That is exactly what happens to our protagonist, Eleanor. Section 1. The impossible fourth room, the anomaly of number 9. To really wrap our heads around this, we need to see things through Eleanor's eyes. Now, Eleanor is someone who notices absolutely everything, from the exact angle of the morning sun to the tiny print on those little plastic plant tags. Above the line, she sees everyday banal reality: beige carpets, instant soup, and the local HOA actually banning wind chimes because they're an auditory intrusion. But below the line, inside that impossible fourth room, there's this intense, heavy quiet. It's a palpable feeling of this ancient, centuries-old, watching presence. So what is this room actually like? Well, the details are fascinating. Geographically, it's physically impossible, tucked right past that airing cupboard. And unlike the modern lever handles everywhere else in the house, this specific door has a round antique handle. You go inside, and there's a north-facing window letting in this really cool indirect light. But here's the real kicker. The room is entirely empty of furniture, but to Eleanor, it feels physically full. She describes a pressure that literally pushes against her, like an ocean current. And even wilder, the room seems to dynamically adjust itself to whoever steps inside. Section 2. The subcontractor god. Who made Crestfall Close? To make any kind of sense of this bizarre discovery, Eleanor turns to a pretty wild philosophical concept. She starts thinking about the Demiurge. If you're not familiar, in Gnostic philosophy, the Demiurge isn't the ultimate perfect god. It's more like a lower craftsman god. Think of it as a cosmic B-team creator who builds the material world in completely good faith, but imperfectly, because, well, he's working with delegated, flawed materials. Eleanor starts looking at the architect of her whole neighborhood as this sort of subcontractor god, super enthusiastic, but definitely limited. And this brilliantly illustrates how the mundane copy-paste repetition of those houses is actually an expression of this imperfect creator. The neighborhood isn't some dystopian nightmare, it's just trying its best. The houses are unique, sure, but only within the incredibly strict tolerance range approved by the HOA. It's a beautifully flawed creation, made in good faith. But that begs the question. If the Demiurge built the beige houses, who on earth built the impossible fourth room? Section 3. The ancient watching place. The history of the site. Right, so what made the fourth room? Eleanor ends up talking to her neighbor Greta, who happens to be a retired geologist, and Greta drops a timeline on her that blows the whole neighborhood's history wide open. Way before the subdivision, even before the farmland, going all the way back to the Iron Age, there was actually a dry stone circular enclosure sitting on this exact north-northeast facing site. Fast forward to 1743, and a local guy named Thomas Aldermast recorded old lore about the spot. Then, in the 1960s, a construction worker named William Fitch secretly marked its exact center point in the concrete foundation of Eleanor's house. And now, today, Eleanor has found a room built right on top of it. In the ancient records, this site was known as a watching place. 3,000 years. I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. For 3,000 years, human beings have been coming to this exact geographic coordinate to direct their attention outward. Greta, being a geologist, doesn't actually view this as supernatural at all. She sees it as deeply natural. She's got this theory that human attention literally accumulates. Think about it. When people pour intensely focused attention into a single place over millennia, it acts almost like a geological force. It leaves a residue, a certain density, a literal presence baked right into the ground itself. Section 4. Anatomy of the seam, the pleroma, and the divide. But what were they all watching? Well, according to an 18th century manuscript that was dug up by William Fitch, who's the neighborhood's oldest resident, this spot is called the seam, or the thinning. It's a specific geographical point where the upper fabric of the world, the material stuff made by our imperfect Demiurge, and the lower fabric of the world lie closest together. The barrier here is so thin that communication can actually cross right over. And if you're wondering what is on the other side of that seam, the old manuscript describes the ultimate entity that's receiving all this human attention as something that was conscious before consciousness had a name. Gnostics actually called it the pleroma, the ultimate fullness from before the universe was ever divided. And the beautiful thing is, it's not some angry, judging God. It's just a vast, ancient awareness that simply receives your attention and returns it. When Eleanor pokes around the fourth room a bit more, she actually finds a physical representation of this connection, marked low on the wall. Picture this really simple geometry, a circle, perfectly bisected by a single horizontal line. It's an ancient mark, pressed into the original dirt floor 3,000 years ago, and then faithfully copied into the modern concrete foundation by William Fitch back in the 60s. Now, what's really interesting here is how this basic geometry acts like a literal door. The circle, that represents the whole of existence. The horizontal line is the seam, that crucial divide between the seen material world and the unseen prior consciousness. By drawing the line, you are physically spanning that divide. You're connecting the above and the below. And human attention? That acts as the electrical current. It's the conductor that travels right across the line. Section 5. The power of attention. The keepers of the close. This brings us to maybe the coolest mechanism of the whole room. It doesn't just sit there passively, it interacts with you. When someone crosses the seam, the room gives them exactly what they most essentially need. Take William Fitch. He protected the site since the 60s, and he received a lifetime of deliberate, deeply rooted correspondence. Then there's Paul, Greta's husband. He found the room right before he suddenly passed away, and it gave him the absolute certainty that consciousness doesn't just end, which gently prepared him for what was coming. And Eleanor? She spent her entire life anxiously noticing every little detail, constantly wondering if she was just shouting into a dark void. The room gave her this overwhelming, physical sensation of being truly seen, held, and answered. Throughout all of this, Eleanor keeps counting the exact number of steps between her house and Greta's. 11. Just 11 steps. It turns into this talismanic number for her. It's the perfect symbol of how incredibly close our banal, completely ordinary world is to these profound, world-altering cosmic truths. Think back to when Paul came out of that room for the very first time. He just calmly went downstairs, made a sandwich, and told his wife, Greta, we are being taken care of. That right there is the emotional core of this entire explainer. The prior consciousness on the other side of the seam isn't demanding your worship or asking for sacrifices. It's just returning human attention with this vast, patient love. It is literally taking care of us. Section 6. The ultimate takeaway, the sacred in the suburbs. So where does this leave Eleanor? And honestly, where does it leave us? Eleanor always thought her intense hyper-focus on mundane details, reading plant labels, stopping to watch a dog pause on the sidewalk, was this annoying character flaw. But it turns out it's not a flaw at all. It's the exact mechanism required to connect with the divine. By paying close attention, she was building a reciprocal bridge to that prior consciousness and stepping right into a lineage of keepers that stretches back millennia. It all clicks for Eleanor with this one beautiful truth. The sacred refuses to be elsewhere. Magic and meaning, they don't just exist in some mystical, faraway fantasy realm. They exist right here, inside beige suburban houses, right next to your electric kettle and the Homeowners Association handbook, on a completely ordinary Tuesday afternoon. The extraordinary is literally hiding right inside the everyday. Which leaves us with a really big question to chew on. Think about your own focus for a second. Are you just directing your attention out into a void? Or are you ready to realize that your attention leaves a mark? What are you building in the ground beneath your feet right now? Keep noticing the world around you because you might just be part of a continuous, ancient correspondence. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will catch you next time.